Hey guys, welcome to KD Industries. Today we're going to be talking about how to get back into the dating scene when you've been widowed. So it's a big topic, I know, so we're just going to take it slow, and I'd like to give out the disclaimer that when you are getting back into the dating scene, especially after when you've been widowed and you've lost someone very close to you, it can be a very emotional process, and it's always good to have a coach or a therapist right there with you so you can kind of unpack what's going on for you and things like that. Today we're going to kind of do it like a few do's and a few don'ts. In my experience, I'll explain what's helpful and what's not. So do's and don'ts of the dating scene when you're widowed. Do know when you're ready. So for everyone this will be completely different. Like, you might have lost someone a few years ago, you might have lost someone recently. It's completely up to you. Never let anyone push you into doing something that you're not ready for. And if you're not ready to date yet, that is 110% okay. Sometimes it can be hard to know exactly when you're ready, but a good indication can be when suddenly the pain of not having that companionship anymore starts to really grate on you and becomes almost as large as the grief pain itself or the loss itself. They become two conflicting forces in you, that you've lost that person and it's really hard, but also you've lost the companionship and you'd like to get that back in your life. I think that's a good indicator. It's entirely up to you when you're ready, but the fact you're watching this video is a good indication that there's something ticking over in the back of your mind. Do take things slowly with any new partner that comes into your life. For a lot of people, this can be heaps anxiety provoking, and maybe you haven't dated in like 20 years. Maybe the dating scene has completely changed. It has. Everything's online now as opposed to actually going out there and being in person, and that might scare you. I think it's good to step it out into small little chunks. If things are pretty overwhelming for you, if you're still dealing with your grief and loss, things are overwhelming even on the best of days, take it slow, Make an online profile. Suss out the people around you. See if there's anyone you are interested in. You don't even have to talk to them. That's the best part about being online, is you can go at your own pace. If you're not ready, you can just suss it out. People will talk to you, but you don't have to respond. If you are ready, have a conversation. Have a bit of a chat. See how you're going. See if you're liking this person. And just gradually, step by step, step it up. Because that way, if any hard emotions come up, you can work through that, and you have the time to work through that because they're not right there in front of you. Maybe go on a date, toy with the idea in your mind of, oh, how would I feel if he held my hand, or how would I feel if he kissed me, and try to really get an idea of how you're going to respond in this situation. I think that's the best way to kind of feel a bit more comfortable, because you're a bit more anticipatory of what could happen. And that way as well, if you are struggling with anything, or if you are feeling uncomfortable, maybe even just making an online dating profile is a scary step for you, and you need to take a step back for a couple months and work it out a bit more in your mind, or go talk to your therapist about it. You have the beauty of doing that. You can just take it at whatever step is right for you. If you do happen to be out on a date and they ask you, well, why are you single? What happened to your last partner? Which often does come up really quickly these days. I would suggest actually telling them what happened. That's a huge part of your life that has impacted you emotionally, physically, mentally. So you want to let them know. Because if there's someone who genuinely is interested in getting to know you, that's something that's happened in your life. And with anything else that would be similar, you would tell them. But I would suggest telling them in a short micro bite of what actually happens. I would just be like, hey, look, I actually am widowed. My partner passed away so many years ago. Almost leaving it at that, and then they will respond whether they want to ask more questions, whether they're interested, or whether they just want to leave that and be like, okay, sure. If it doesn't come up straight away, that's entirely up to you when you bring it up or how you bring it up. To be honest, I think I would maybe wait a few dates until I'm a bit more sussed out on the situation and feel a bit more comfortable, and until I kind of trust the person before I go running into those things. Because again, that's an important thing that happened in my life. It's not something I would just tell anyone on the street. So I'm just going to wait it out and give it a little bit of time. So now for the don'ts. So don't compare yourself to others. You might have a friend who's also widowed and got back out there on the dating scene within 6 months. You might have friends who are telling you, you should do this, you should go put yourself back out there, you should do this, you should do that. Take their advice on board, but at the end of the day, it's up to you what you do with that. You can say, yeah, maybe I am ready, or no, I just know I'm not, and no matter what anyone's gonna say is not gonna change that. So go at your own pace, because grief is different for everyone as well. It might have been a sudden loss, and sudden losses, the grieving process almost sometimes takes a bit longer because you just weren't expecting it. It's just hit you out of the blue. denial is smack bang in your face. Whereas someone who maybe had a partner who was ill and it took a little while, essentially the grieving process starts when they find out they're ill. They might be your friend who gets back in the dating scene in 6 months' time because they've had those years to kind of process their emotions and process their grief and loss. They're at a bit more of that acceptance phase where they can move on and move forward, whereas you might be someone else who it still feels so real to you and it's still the forefront of what you're thinking and feeling in your everyday life, and you're like, hey, look, a new partner is probably not the way to go for me right now. Don't let the fear and guilt stop you. I know a lot of people who new experiences can sometimes become very scary. Our brains will often tell us, oh, this is something we're uncertain about, we're unsure about this. Oh, it's a bit too anxiety provoking for me to handle it right now. I'm just going to shelve it and push it to the back for a little while. So, there's a lot of fear and a lot of guilt there that comes up, and it will come up, and you know, that's part of the process. But don't let that stop you if having a new partner is something that you want to achieve. If you want that companionship in your life, if you want someone to go out with on the weekends, you almost have to make a decision between fear and guilt, the pain of having to deal with that and put yourself out in uncomfortable situations, and maybe be back on the dating market and have someone say, I'm not that interested in you, and have that pain, versus putting yourself out there and actually finding someone who is right for you and who acknowledges what you've been through and helps you find a little bit of happiness. Often it's safe to just stay in our little comfort zone and not want to move out of that by going on a date or talking to someone new or giving someone your number. It can be very anxiety provoking because it's like you don't know what's going to happen. They might not be the right guy for you. They might be someone who isn't very nice, or they might be someone who doesn't understand your grief. So there's a lot of what ifs there, but our brain will always give us the what ifs. Our brain is programmed to focus on fear and give us what ifs to protect us, essentially. What our brain doesn't focus on is the other side of the coin of what could be. It could be amazing. It could be great. It could be exactly what you're after. But you'll never know unless you try. The other don't is don't idealize your partner and put them up on this pedestal like they were the best person in the entire world. I can definitely see why people would do that, especially if they've had such a great loving relationship, and I can understand and respect that. But walking into the dating scene and telling the person across the table from you that, oh, my partner was the best, so great, he was this, he was that, he was amazing. It would be really hard for them to hear that. Even subconsciously, they might try to challenge that and end up in this, can I ever be as good as the ex-partner was thing? And really there's no competition because they're two completely different relationships. It's not fair to compare partners. It's not going to help your new relationship if you're talking about how incredible your old partner was. I believe you still should talk about your partner. I think that your new partner should be okay with the fact that this has happened, you've lost someone else, and that they're going to come up in conversation every now and then. You're going to say, oh, I went to Queensland with this person once. Things like that are going to come up, and that should be okay, but putting them up on a pedestal and almost reminding the other partner why they're not as good as that person is probably not ideal. Finally, I'd like to leave you on take the plunge. Take the plunge and just do it. Go on that date. Put yourself out of your comfort zone. It might be terrifying, but there's ways around that. You can get a friend to come and sit in the corner of the restaurant, and if things are going really awry, you could just text them, come to the bathroom with me, I need you. Both go to the bathroom, chat it out, come back. There's little things you can do to make things a bit more comfortable for you. You always go to a public place, things like that. But take the plunge, because you have no idea how amazing it could be on the other side. And even if it's not, even if you meet someone who's not that great, you're going to learn heaps about who you are as a person, how you handle that situation, and the nature of your grief. If you're finding that you've gone on a date and you go home and you just bawl your eyes out, well, then you can kind of say, was this too soon? Do I need to go see a therapist? Is there something I need to work through here? It's going to grow you as a person, and it's going to bring you that one step forward to being able to find that new person in your life. Because once you've had that experience, you know, okay, like it's a bit much at the moment, maybe I need to work through some stuff, and then I can get back on the horse and try again. So take the plunge, 'cause it's going to bring you great things whether you realize it or not. At the end of the day, guys, you deserve to be happy. And whether that happiness looks like going out and finding a new partner or staying by yourself because you need to do that for your own mindset right now, that's cool. You just do you. Let me know in the comments how you go.